Aloha. Glad you're here, old chap. Stay away from the living, my dear. Death ain't all that bad now, is it? I suppose we should do something. Death is really quite boring. Well, hello again, my sweet tots. It has been quite some time since our last adventure. I have missed you so very much, but it is time now to splain once again. This time we're going to explore the female body and how it has been used as a medium for art. I have been tempted to dive into this matter for quite some time. No body is powerless. The way we shape our hair, the styling of our clothing or makeup, and any other way we present our physical meat mask, it all reveals so much about our sense of self, our relationship to others, and even how we may try to rebel against social conventions. In celebration of Women's History Month, I chose to focus this video entirely on those who identify as female. We have made this video in support of the hashtag 5WomenArtists campaign. Launched by the National Museum of Women in the Arts in 2016, this campaign calls attention to the fact that women have not been treated equally in the art world. The New York Times reported that only 11% of art acquired by the country's top museums for their permanent collections was by women between the years 2008 and 2018. With this in mind, I challenge you to name 5 women artists right here, right now. No, really, say loud and proud the names of 5 women artists that you know. I'll wait. You have truly made me feel shame. Except you in the back, I see you and I love you. Since you failed me, it's time for me to present to you 5 contemporary women artists. First up, Yoko Ono. Don't you dare turn off this video, that would be a big no-no, because I do declare that Yoko Ono is an artist who I truly respect. Not only that, but she is, as described by her late husband, John Lennon, the world's most famous unknown artist. While she is most certainly well established, her reputation as a prominent avant-garde artist is also often eclipsed by the popular press, who have labeled her, to put it bluntly, a homewrecker. Since the blame game was placed on Ono for allegedly breaking up the Beatles, she has dealt with an onslaught of racism and sexism that continues to this day, with some still calling her a dragon lady or even a witch. Perhaps even you, my viewer, hate her, though maybe not for these reasons, but I ask you for just one brief moment to allow yourself the opportunity to consider that maybe, just maybe, you misunderstand her. I do acknowledge, though, that Ono's road to redemption has been rocky, and this can even be seen most recently in the Beatles Get Back documentary. Before the audio reading of her article about the documentary, Amanda Hess, the critic at large at the New York Times, says this.
When I first started watching the documentary, I knew that this trope that Yoko Ono broke up the Beatles was this sexist, racist, at the very least a simplification of what really happened. And so I went into the documentary ready to defend her. And then I found myself initially so put off by her presence. I found it so weird that she was there and she just kept being there right in the middle of the action, just really doing nothing and kind of performatively doing nothing. I felt like she was doing something kind of pathetic, I guess, to just be sitting around while her boyfriend was making an album. And it was only over the course of this 8-hour documentary that I came to really be fascinated by and ultimately respect what she was doing, which is a kind of performance art and a passive resistance to what women are expected to do when they are in male artistic spaces.
Ono's presence in the company of the Beatles may have seemed intrusive, perhaps even strange to some, but what was she doing exactly that was worth so much vitriol? Was it the fact that she simply showed up? That a woman was in what others might see as a man's domain? In an interview with 60 Minutes, Get Back director Peter Jackson says this.
I can understand from George and Paul and Ringo's point of view, it's like a little strange. But the thing with Yoko, though, that they have to say is that she doesn't impose herself. She's writing letters, she's reading letters, she's doing sewing, she's doing some painting, sometimes artwork off to the side. She never has opinions about the stuff they're doing. She never says, oh, I think the previous take was better than that one. She's a very benign presence and she doesn't interfere in the slightest.
With all that said, let's forget about the Beatles for the remainder of this video, because I personally think it's time to just let it be. Let's get to know Ono and one of my favorite works by her. Ono was born in Tokyo on February 18, 1933 to a wealthy banking family. During World War II, Ono and her family fled Tokyo during the wartime bombing raids. Later in her life, she attended the philosophy program at Gakushuin University as the first woman accepted into the program before later leaving soon after with her family to move to Scarsdale, New York. After becoming a student at Sarah Lawrence College, she befriended avant-garde artists like composers John Cage and Lamont Young. Eventually, she became known as the High Priestess of the Happening for her gatherings of experimental musicians and artists who she hosted in her New York City loft. But why am I so beguiled by Ono, you may ask? Well, my interest first began with one performance, perhaps her most well-known performance, known as Cut Piece. Ono debuted the piece on July 20th, 1964 at the Yamaichi Concert Hall in Kyoto, Japan. For her performance, Ono sat motionless as the audience came by one to cut a small piece of her clothing to take with them. Cut Piece eventually had reprisals in New York, London, and Paris. What can be learned from such a performance? I see the piece as representing sexual aggression, gender subordination, and the harm of voyeurism. Even those who don't participate but instead watch are just as harmful, but it can mean much more than that. In 2008, Kevin Concannon notes in PAJ, a journal of performance and art, that Ono intended Cut Piece to be performed by men or women. According to him, a feminist interpretation of the piece seems to presume a female performer, something never mandated by the artist herself. So it is possible to see the work as more than just a powerful vision of feminism. Julia Bryan Wilson, in her 2003 essay in the Oxford Art Journal, considers the performance piece's uses of a body in not only gendered lens, but formed by nation, race, and history. She writes, understanding the war's impact on Ono's own body helps resituate her art within a more international feminism. Ono's work of the 1960s is framed by World War II on one side and Vietnam on the other. The war of the past and the war of the present combine to create an intense anxiety about the status of the future, one that she worked through obsessively in her art. Readings of Cut Piece as feminist, pacifist, anti-authoritarian, Buddhist, and beyond are all valid, I believe. And that's why I like this performance by Ono so much. It is something that can still intrigue and confound to this day. Something we can all respond to and scratch our heads and think, now that's something, all right.
Stop talking about women and let's get dead, Daddy-O.
I am not yet finished. How rude.
You're getting very sleepy, aren't you? Oh.
I feel quite well rested, actually. But thank you. For now, let's move onwards to Juno Calypso. Calypso is a London-based artist who works with photography, film, and installation. She has studied at the London College of Communication and the Chelsea School of Art, and has won several accolades, including the International Photography Award from the British Journal of Photography. She has also done commercial work, as seen with her shooting and directing the 2018 Burberry Christmas campaign, as well as having photographed Billie Eilish, Naomi Campbell, and Matt Smith. If you're going to know Juno Calypso, you also have to know Joyce, a fictional alter ego and a series that she has been using since her time as a student. Through her solitary, eerie, and unsettling self-portraits, she explores femininity, ritualized beauty, youth, seduction, and kitsch, with both a dark lens and also a touch of humor. For her Joyce and Honeymoon series, Calypso crossed the Atlantic to take self-portraits at the Pennsylvania Love Hotel, Penn Hills Resort. Here, she juxtaposed a sullen demeanor and pouting lips with heart-shaped bathtubs, mirrors upon mirrors, electronic anti-wrinkle masks, and tins of cold canned meat. In an interview with Vice, Calypso said, "I'm trying to make a perfect photograph of a woman trying to create a perfect vision of herself." In 2017 at the Here Festival, curated by It's Nice That, Calypso also said this.
But I kind of discovered comedy in my work, and that was something that was really lacking in photography, especially photography, oh my God. And so I really wanted to make everyone laugh, and so that was this is how I did that. And I feel like this was the beginning of something. This was the beginning of this character that I'm still working with now. And this kind of embodied all of that. It was like, it's funny and it's a bit weird, I'm turned on? Is this, that was like my holy trinity, just like funny, sexy, weird.
For her photo, 12 Reasons You're Tired All the Time, Calypso uses something called a Linda Evans Rejuvenique facial toning system. It's an electrical device that sends electric currents to one's face with the hope of toning the skin and reducing the appearance of wrinkling. I've been told that beauty is pain, but this torture device is just ridiculous. It's also ridiculously perfect for Calypso's suspense-filled, seductive, and downright creepy photos. In an interview with Time, Calypso said, "What exhausts me about the feminist ideal is the repetition of it, and the fact that you can't escape it. But everyone is sort of hypnotized by it, and that's why it's so exciting. Everybody wants to be a better version of themselves. Before, women were trapped in the kitchen, and they could slam the door and run away and leave. But now we're sort of trapped in our own bodies, and there's no escape from it. I find Calypso's work so intriguing because I, too, am trapped. Will somebody let me out? 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 Oh shucks. It appears I've been dead this whole time."
Fancy seeing you here, madam. How about a riddle?
There are no riddles in Women's History Month. Anyways, it is time for the next artist. Please give a warm welcome to Mari Katayama. Born in Saitama in 1987 and raised in Gunma, Japan, Katayama has studied at the Tokyo University of the Arts and has had works exhibited at the Tokyo Photographic Art Museum, the Tokyo Metropolitan Art Museum, Japan's Museum of Modern Art, Gunma, and the 2019 Vienna Biennale. Her works critique conventional notions of beauty and femininity, as well as the invisibility of disabled people. Katayama had both legs amputated at the age of 9 due to congenital tibial hemimelia. Later, while using her body as a living sculpture, her self-portrait photography often involved decorated prosthesis and embroidered objects. Here, see her photo, I Have Child's Feet, where she poses with the prosthetic legs she used to wear as a child, and also Bystander number 2, where she is seen with a many-handed doll, involving photographing the hands of members of an all-female traditional puppet theater group, and printing them onto the material. Often, she plays on famous artworks, such as Sandro Botticelli's The Birth of Venus, with her work Bystander number 1. Here, she looks like a beautiful and blasé mermaid that drifted to shore. What could she be looking at on her phone? Perhaps she's subscribing to Artsplained? There is also her take on John Everett Malais's Ophelia painting with the same title, but captured in a much more modern way. I enjoy the variety of textures in this space and how relatable the clutter is. Truly, she could be looking into my bedroom as well, or perhaps my soul. In an interview with CNN, Katayama said, "I don't think I have learned to use my body. I use my body as material simply because it's handy. I don't think it's correct to say my body is the subject or the theme of my art. I often feel like I'm different from others, and the pieces made by this different person should be peculiar." I wanted to include Katayama in this Artsplained episode because I find her works to be so provocative and so beautiful. I was especially taken by her TEDx Kobe talk in 2015, where she described an unfortunate event that ended up inspiring her art.
私は田舎のジャズバーで歌を歌って仕事をしていました。酔っ払ったお客さんがハイヒール履かない女なんて女じゃねえだろうとお酒をかけてヤジを飛ばしてきたことがあったんです。私はお酒をかけられたことよりもなんか自分の中でこれはできないだろうなと思って諦めてたことを指摘されたようでつつかれたようですごい悔しくなって東京にある義肢製作所に駆け込みます。そこで今ある義足の部品の中で一番高いハイヒールが履ける部品が欲しいと。それで自分のためにハイヒールを履くというプロジェクトを立ち上げました。ハイヒールプロジェクトを活動していくうちに自分の中で自分のためだけのアートじゃない可能性というものが見えてきました。それで驚いたことに街に出るといろんな人の視線が私にバッと集中するんですね。なんだと。別に私は 偉いことを言ってるわけでもいいことを言ってるわけでもなんかこう奇抜なおかしなことやってるわけじゃないのに、ちょっと私がこうつまずきそうになったり何かあったり挙手動作一つ一つにみんなの注目がこう「あ、大丈夫?」みたいなことを言ってくれたりするわけです。そしてなんと私の声がまるで拡声器を通した声のように遠い遠い先の人にまで伝わるようになりました。この時に初めて自分のためだけでないアートっていう使い方があるんだと確信しました。このハイヒールは当事者と社会をつなげる何かの役に立つのではないかと、道具になるのではないかと思いました。
Katayama is a great example of how we can use our bodies to connect with and understand one another. Our penultimate artist similarly used her body as a medium to express herself, her life experiences, and how the art world has hurt women who look like her. Howardena Pindell was born in Philadelphia in 1943, but grew up in the South when it was still lawfully segregated and when racism was rampant nationwide. She graduated from Boston University, where she studied painting and later earned an MFA from Yale University, before moving to New York University. There, she landed a job at the Museum of Modern Art, where she worked as an exhibition assistant. During her 12-year tenure at the museum, she rose to assistant curator in the Department of National and International Traveling Exhibitions, before becoming an associate curator and eventually acting director in the Department of Prints and Illustrated Books. She was at the time one of the first Black curators at the Museum of Modern Art. After she decided to quit to focus on making and teaching art, she was hired as an associate professor at Stony Brook University in 1979. Shortly after, she was a passenger in a near-death car accident that left her with partial memory loss. 8 months after this experience, she set up a video camera in her apartment, focused it on herself, and made her seminal autobiographical video performance art piece known as Free, White, and 21. This deadpan performance piece shares her and her mother's experiences of racism in America. In the video, she wraps her head with gauze while recounting the memories of abuse, ridicule, and denigration. Pindell also dresses up in the guise of a white woman with white face and a blonde wig to portray a character that reflects the white women that she has dealt with in the past.
You know, you really must be paranoid. Those things never happened to me. I don't know anyone who's had those things happen to them. But then, of course, they're free, white, and 21, so they wouldn't have that kind of experience.
Free, White, and 21 is the first video that Pindell made and one of the only performances that she ever did, according to WNYC Studios. The reason why Pindell created Free, White, and 21 was a way for her to tell her and many others' truth during a time in the nation when intersectionality was still rare. Pindell has spoken out about how she had to deal with white feminists who didn't seem to care about or want to acknowledge her experience as a Black woman. Here is what Pindell told the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts in a video on her work.
When I brought up issues of racism, what I found was that white American women didn't want to talk about it. They would just say, oh, this is about politics. I don't want to know about this. I wanted to say what I felt.
In an interview with the WNYC Studios, Thelma Golden, the director and chief curator at the Studio Museum in Harlem, said this on Pindell's work.
This video and this retelling of these experiences really brings to mind, for example, the slave narratives, right? Where slaves had to tell the story of their bondage. And so I think that this work kind of exists between the past of a kind of personal narrative as a means, right, of sort of political action, and a present in which the codes of video and sort of performance art and conceptual art really privilege the personal narrative as the source of art. In many ways, it feels like in this work, Pindell wants that to be the experience. She is looking directly at them, and the idea that they are hearing this from her direct truth being spoken directly to the viewer, I think is also some of the power of the work.
Along with Free, White, and 21, Pindell's paintings carry merit for their method of destruction and reconstruction, playing on texture and color while addressing themes like homelessness, AIDS, war, genocide, sexism, xenophobia, and apartheid, according to her artist statement. As reported by the Art newspaper, Pindell's collage paintings, for which she is best known, are protest statements with autobiographic underpinnings. Pindell's works are in the permanent collections of several major museums internationally, including the Brooklyn Museum, the Corcoran Gallery of Art, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, and the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., among several others. Our fifth and final artist was kind enough to speak to Artsplained, presenting Eszter Magyar, otherwise known as Makeup Brutalism, on Instagram. Magyar is a Budapest-born Berlin-based photographer whose portfolio includes covers on Harper's Bazaar, Marie Claire, and Cosmopolitan. Her works have also been seen in Vogue Brazil, in Style Hungary, and she has previously collaborated with Gucci. She is also the mastermind behind the hashtag #UglyMakeupRevolution. By golly, I sure have been talking for quite a bit of time. Rather than talk about Magyar any further, let's bring her on stage to speak for herself. Magyar, please tell us what inspired you to create your Makeup Brutalism account.
First, I have to start with a pretty controversial statement. Makeup is a service. I know people often say, oh, makeup is art, and yes, makeup can be art, but not all makeup reaching that level. So makeup is about rules. It's about following the rules. It's about knowing the rules. And after a while, I just discovered the need in myself to question these instead of blindly following them. And probably that was the base for Makeup Brutalism. But it took me like 5 or 6 years, because the first time period, this 5 or 6 years, were like practicing what I learned to perfect all the techniques to be a good makeup artist. But they say you have to know the rules to break the rules, and I think it's true. A lot of people asking me, why is Makeup Brutalism different from any other makeup handles? And there's a pretty simple answer to this question, because Makeup Brutalism is not a makeup handle. It's about conceptual art, where I mix social criticism with human aesthetics and use makeup as one of the main topics and medium for my work.
How did you get started as a makeup artist?
My story as a makeup artist is a pretty funny one, because I never wanted to be a makeup artist. I was never interested in makeup. First, I wanted to be a fashion designer, after a stylist, but it turned out that I'm pretty tasteless and talentless as well. But it was not a big shock for me. There were signs. And at the same time, I just realized that I'm in love with photography. But I had a really bad experience when I went to a photography school, so I thought maybe it's a sign that photography is not for me. So there was a certain point of time when I was totally desperate to find myself, and I was open to everything. And one of my friends just asked me, why don't you try makeup? Because, fashion makeup and fashion photography are pretty much connected. And I was like, okay, I can try that. But I never thought in my wildest dreams that something will happen here.
You've stated in the past that you do not consider yourself an influencer. Why not?
I see influencers as online salesperson and beauty gurus as online educators who are trying to teach people how to or how not to do makeup. At this point of time, I do not have interest in any of those things. I use my Instagram as kind of a therapy for me. It will sound pretty selfish, but my Instagram, my content is all about me, how I see the world, about my questions, and about me trying to find answers and how I try to find these answers for those questions. So I think of it more like of some conceptual art piece, but to be honest, I do not really have the confidence to call myself an artist. If someone asks me, I say I'm a wannabe artist or a visual creator. But yeah, to be honest, I don't really want to limit myself to anything because the whole process is super fluid. It changed so much, and probably I've changed so much, and I really like it that way. I really enjoy it that way.
Can you speak a little bit about your goals when you created the hashtag Ugly Makeup Revolution?
When I made the hashtag Ugly Makeup Revolution, I had no intentions with it at all, and it was quite a big surprise that people started to use it as well. I don't remember if I ever advertised it on my Instagram to people to use it, but maybe I did, I didn't know. I just remember that after a few months, I checked it out of curiosity. A lot of people used it. Ugly Makeup Revolution is not about ugly makeup. It's not about looks which are not visually pleasing. They are. The word usage of ugly is pure gaslighting, and all those makeup looks are irregular. They're exciting because they are out of the box solutions to the same old question. So they are inspiring, I guess. I would say they are super inspiring.
In your interview with Gucci Beauty, you said, "Beauty bores me." What is it about beauty that bores you?
For me, beauty is perfection. Perfection is predictable. There's nothing in it really which excites me. I see, perfect things are probably beautiful and symmetric and smooth and easy, but I'm searching for different qualities in everything. I love exciting things. I love new things. I love everything which is inspiring and irregular and motivating. And these things are mostly not perfect at all.
What advice would you give to aspiring makeup artists?
People should be aware of that being a makeup artist is not just fun and games. It has its dark and twisted sides as well, and people should be aware of that too. It is really hard nowadays to be a successful makeup artist because of social platforms. For example, Instagram. The whole world just opened up and you are going against everyone. You have to be better than everyone else. So it's not just a local problem anymore, but you have to be better than anyone else. And what I find really, really hard, that what I said before, everything wants to influence us all the time. Everywhere we look, all those visual noises everywhere, it's really hard to hear your own voice, to know who you really are. But you only can be successful if you can focus on yourself and take your time and energy to discover who you are and what you love, what you like, and why. These are pretty important things, because in the reality, it's human nature that we have followers and leaders, and only those people can be leaders who know what they want and why they want it. If you just copy others or go after others, you will be a follower and never a leader.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us lowly plebs at Downhill Media. Your presence is the best present you could give us. And thank you, dear viewer, for taking the time out of your day to learn more about these women artists. I have been wanting to make this video for quite some time now, because in the end, at Artsplained, we do more than just plain art. We celebrate it. Let us know who some of your favorite female artists are. Be sure to like this video and subscribe. Don't leave that little bell hanging. Give it a click as well.
I am Eszter Magyar, and thank you for watching Artsplained.
Sayonara, Paparino. Boy, oh boy, it's good to be back. Goodbye forever.